Hello and welcome to India Business. I'm Pariksha Tutra. Here are the headlines we are tracking this evening. Layoffs at TCS spark fear across Indian IT stocks. Decline across the board after TCS announces more than 12,000 job cuts in what is the biggest layoff in the software industry yet. TCS claims the job cuts are not linked to artificial intelligence and blames a mismatch in skills. US and Europe agree on a trade deal with days to go for the August deadline. US will impose a 15% tariff instead of the 30% proposed earlier. Auto tariffs reduced from 25% to 15%. Steel tariffs continue to be at 50%. Business leaders in Europe criticize the deal. European Commission's president says this is the best deal they could get. India evaluates its options as the August deadline approaches with an interim trade deal almost ruled out. Sources say India is considering all options, including the possibility of imposition of reciprocal tariffs. US trade representatives hint at more negotiations. Sensex and Nifty near a two-month low after a sharp fall on Dalal Street. IT and bank stocks lead the decline. No respite for mid-caps and small caps as the sell-off continues. Shares of Kotak Mahindra Bank plunges after a disappointing Q1. ICICI Bank emerges as the top performer among private banks this quarter. HDFC Bank is largely steady. Axis, Kotak and IndusInd face some headwinds. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says no important military asset was damaged during Operation Sindoor as Parliament kicks off a debate. Minister also says the operation was stopped after objectives were achieved and not due to any external pressure. The Union Government is likely to launch the revamped Central KYC Registry from March 2026 instead of 2025. Government official says that each KYC record covering individuals and entities will be assigned a confidence score based on the strength, validity, usage and revalidation of identity documents. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman questions India's private sector over the lack of capital expansion, asks why is the industry sitting on passive funds instead of investing in growth. Indian oil refiner NayaraEnergy, backed by Russia's Rosneft, takes Microsoft to court. This after Microsoft stopped services to the company following sanctions by European Union. More people starve to death in Gaza, even as Israel allows a temporary pause in military action to allow food assistance. The overall death toll in Gaza nears 60,000 in the 21 months of the war with Israel. 19-year-old Divya Deshmukh becomes a world champion after defeating a legendary compatriot Koneru Hampi in the final through tie breaks. The victory also marks Deshmukh's fourth woman grandmaster from India. The big story this evening, Tata Consultancy Services has said it will fire 2% of its total workforce, equating to roughly 12,000 employees over the course of the current financial year. This is Indian IT's biggest layoff exercise to date. The company had laid off more than 3,000 employees, equating to 1% of its total employee count in FY15. Shares of the firm declined more than 1% in trade. Shares of all IT companies came under pressure as many fear others could follow suit with job cuts after TCS. In trade, in response to this development, Reema Tendulkar is here with all the details.
Thanks so much for that. So the big question is, do the job cuts at TCS signal a big tech reset? Well, the news is that India's largest IT services firm, TCS, is letting go of 2% of its workforce. That is nearly 12,000 employees. And this is largely the mid to senior level, and it would be spread across FY26. Now, this is significant because TCS is the bellwether of India's $250 billion IT industry. Job losses at this scale are not just rare for TCS, they're unprecedented. So what is the key driver behind the job cuts? Well, it is a growing mismatch between demand and the available skills. TCS insists this is not about AI replacing jobs or the need to hire less. CEO K. Krithivasan told Money Control that this is not about AI giving you 20% more productivity gains. It is about skill mismatches and the feasibility of deployment. But that said, there has been a slowdown. There has been pressure on margins. And in an AI automation world, we need fewer people, fewer managers will be needed. The mantra is basically you can do more with less. Now, global tech giants have already made very deep workforce cuts, and this has been happening for a while. Just this year, Microsoft has axed nearly 15,000 jobs in 2 rounds. IBM has reportedly let go of 8,000 employees as AI has replaced HR. But now what's happening is that the tech layoff wave is hitting closer home. TCS calls it as a part of a journey to become a future-ready organization. But the deeper shift is clear, that the traditional, people-led, a linear revenue model is now giving way to an outcome-based AI one, a platform one. And it hasn't happened overnight. Indian IT companies have been stealthily, quietly rebalancing their headcount for nearly 2 years. This is the picture over the last 2 years and how the headcount has changed. For TCS, it's lower by more than 2,000. For Infy, about 12,500. Wipro, in excess of 25,000. So the question is, what lies ahead? Will other IT companies also follow suit and optimize their workforce to become future-ready? So do we have more job cuts coming for the entire sector? Will the industry continue to delay wage hikes? Remember, TCS hasn't given their wage hike as they normally do in April. And in the near term, say for a company like TCS, will this trigger a spike in attrition or will it in any way impact the job delivery? So lots of questions. We'll have to see how this plays out. But this could just be the start of a deeper transformation in the Indian IT, the way it operates and survives in this age of AI.
The employee strength of IT majors have also remained largely stagnant in every fiscal since FY23. In fact, TCS and Wipro have seen a reduction in headcount. Companies reduced hiring after stocking up on talent during COVID-19. Furthermore, growth has largely moderated after a pandemic-fueled surge, with constant currency revenue growth shrinking in the first quarter of this financial year for both TCS and Wipro. Software service providers are also facing more competition, with multinational companies establishing their own global capability centers or GCCs.
The focus on the Sholay dialogue, kitne aadmi the, or headcount based judging the IT industry, I think thank God that period will be over.
So I tend to agree with the TCS narrative that this is a future-oriented restructuring, because in the days of generative AI, when you're using ChatGPT a little bit and helping yourself, that was fine. But this is the day of autonomous agentic AI, which means that 80% of the work could potentially be performed autonomously. So in that context, when you look at your organization top to middle to bottom, then you do a fundamental rethink. And I think every industry, it does not just IT, but definitely including IT, will do this reorientation. There will be some shedding of jobs.
They got too many people at the middle and senior level, and they do not see them being useful, because people at the bottom too are coming up to those positions, and those people are stagnated, are possibly not in a billing role. It is a very small number. This is just right sizing.
The big global story this evening: the United States and the European Union have reached a trade deal after 4 months of negotiations. President Donald Trump, flanked by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, announced the deal at his golf course resort in Scotland's Turnberry. US President Donald Trump has said that the country would impose a baseline tariff of 15% on most European goods, including cars. Further, EU has agreed to buy energy products worth $750 billion from the United States and invest additional $600 billion in the country. However, US is expected to keep 50% tariff rate on steel and aluminium. However, Europe remains divided over its response to the deal. While German Chancellor Merz and Italian Prime Minister Meloni welcomed the trade deal, French Prime Minister hinted that it was a dark day for the Union. German exporters remain wary over the deal as well. They feel it could have a negative repercussion. European Commission President says this is the best deal they could get. US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer met in Scotland's Turnberry. The two leaders met at Trump's golf resort on the third full day of the US President's private visit to Scotland. Speaking before the meeting, Trump said that the US will be announcing pharma tariffs in the very near future. US and China have resumed a fresh round of talks for an extension to the trade war truce between the two nations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and China's Vice Premier will meet in Sweden's Stockholm to restart negotiations. The current 90-day truce between the US and China is set to end on the 12th of August. Speaking of trade deals, the US has managed to secure agreements with most of its biggest trading partners. China, Japan and the European Union are Washington's top trading partners and have all achieved trade deals in the tariff range of 10 to 30%. Similarly, 3 countries of the South Asia region, Vietnam, Indonesia and Philippines, have also reached trade pacts with the United States. However, other nations of South Asia, including India, have not been able to finalize a trade deal and are facing a proposed tariff rate in the range of 25 to 36% ahead of the 1st August deadline. With only 4 days to go before August 1st to impose tariffs, trade talks between New Delhi and Washington are in a stalemate. Sources say that there is no major breakthrough as US is seeking a more ambitious agreement with India. The United States wants zero duty access to the Indian markets, like America's deals with Vietnam and Indonesia. The Trump administration also pushing for India to commit to big-ticket purchases and investments. Meanwhile, India is evaluating its options ahead of the deadline. The options include the imposition of equal reciprocal tariffs. Remember, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had said that Washington's August 1st deadline will not be extended. Both nations plan to agree on a bilateral trade agreement by October. A delegation from the US is expected to visit India in August for the 6th round of talks.
I think the thing to understand with India is their trade policy for a very long time has been premised on strongly protecting their domestic market. That's just how they do business over there. And the president is in a mode of wanting deals that substantially open other markets, that they open everything or near everything. So we continue to speak with our Indian counterparts. We've always had very constructive discussions with them. They have expressed strong interest in opening portions of their market. We of course are willing to continue talking to them, but I think that we need some more negotiations on that end with our Indian friends to see how ambitious they want to be.
On to the day's market action. The market fell for the 3rd straight session, ending nearly at a 2-month low. IT and bank stocks led the decline. Large-cap IT stocks witnessed a broad-based fall after TCS job cut announcement. Kotak Mahindra Bank erased its market cap of over 30,000 crore rupees after reporting weak earnings. IndusInd Bank's first quarter net profit beat estimates despite falling 72%. On an annualized basis, the private lender's net interest income also surpassed expectations despite falling 14%. However, asset quality weakened with gross NPA rising to 3.64%. IndusInd Bank has said that the bank has taken decisive action on all legacy treasury and microfinance-related issues. Shares of Kotak Mahindra Bank plunged after a disappointing first quarter result. Profits declined nearly 50% when compared to last year. Net interest margins also declined by 32 basis points sequentially. ICICI Bank emerged as the top performer among private banks this quarter. Gaurav Javalkar joins us with the bank's report card.
Well, yes, in the first quarter so far, from large private sector banks, ICICI Bank remained as a top performer, followed by HDFC Bank, Axis Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank. And let's understand this with numbers. When it comes to loan book growth, although Kotak Mahindra Bank reported 14% growth, it was led by corporate segment, which was something which was not appreciated by the market. But on the other hand, ICICI Bank grew its loan book at around 12% and it has been growing on a strong double-digit growth for the last few quarters. For HDFC Bank, they are actually bringing down their CD ratio and they also said that FY26 growth is going to be in line with the market. But for Axis Bank, although the growth looks higher than HDFC Bank, let's not forget this is the 3rd consecutive quarter where they delivered single-digit growth. So that was something which was weak point for Axis. When it comes to net interest margins, now again, ICICI Bank remained as a top pick and the reason being that the net interest margins declined just by 7 basis points. Then comes HDFC Bank. Although the net interest margin decline was around 19% basis point, but it was when it compares to the core net interest margins that declined only by 11 to 12 basis point. For Axis Bank, there was a technical impact and that is the reason why net interest margins declined almost by 17 basis point. So there was an impact of 4 basis point because of the technical impact and I'll come to that in the asset quality segment. And for Kotak Mahindra Bank, the negative impact was 32 basis point. Now this was the highest across the banks as well as it was also something which was not anticipated by the brokerages. When it comes to asset quality now, once again, HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank reported healthy asset qualities. But when it comes to Axis Bank, it actually reported spike in 88 basis point in terms of the credit cost, and this was because of the technical impact. Now, this is something which was taken in a negative way by the street. And for Kotak Mahindra Bank also, this quarter was not that great. Credit cost surged almost by 30 basis points, and this was specifically because of the MFI and retail CV. Although management said that in second half of the year, credit costs will come down, but this was something once again which was not anticipated by any players across the industry. Lastly, all the impact when it comes to return ratios, again, ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank, they managed to maintain their ROAs. In fact, ICICI Bank also expanded their ROAs on a sequential basis. But when it comes to Axis, profit declined almost by 600 crores because of the technical impact, and that also impacted almost by 15 basis points to its ROA. When it comes to the Kotak Mahindra Bank, the impact was highest. ROAs declined almost by 24 basis points on a sequential basis, and this was because of three factors. First is that the net interest margins have been declining. Second is that the credit cost, which was increased, and third is that the loan mix change, which has changed, and that is the reason net interest income was also low. So definitely on all these parameters, to conclude, ICICI Bank remained as a top performer, but on the other hand, Axis Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank actually remained as a laggard in this quarter.
India's industrial production growth has slowed to a 10-month low to 1.5% in June. This was largely led by contraction in mining and electricity production. However, manufacturing rose 3.9%, slightly higher than 3.5% from a year ago. The Finance Ministry says India's inflation in FY26 could be lower than the Reserve Bank's projection of 3.7%. In its economic report for June, the ministry said that this creates room for the interest rate easing cycle to be sustained. However, the report flagged that the slowdown in the US could dampen further demand for Indian exports. The government has plans to roll out central KYC framework by March 2026. This is slightly later than the original deadline of 2025. The new KYC rules will introduce a risk-based and confidence-scored system. Periodic updation of KYC will be streamlined, and risk-based KYC will also kick in from March 2026. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has questioned India's private sector over the lack of capital expansion. Speaking at an event over the weekend, the Finance Minister asked why the industry is sitting on passive funds instead of investing in growth. Further, Finance Minister Sitharaman also observed that opening up to China may help the economy. However, she maintained that a sense of caution will have to be exercised in engagement with Beijing.
The balance sheets of the corporate sector has really become healthier. But today, what observers tell me and what I keep sometimes talking to industries, business leaders is, are they sitting over passive investable funds? Meaning investable funds which are being engaged passively rather than invest in producing more, invest in having capacity expansion and so on. So that's an issue which I would obviously want the industry to speak about.
Russian-backed Indian refiner NayaraEnergy has initiated legal proceedings against Microsoft over suspension of services. In a statement, the company has claimed that Microsoft has restricted Nayara from accessing its own data and proprietary tools. Nayara was recently sanctioned by the European Union since the refinery is majorly owned by Russian entities. The Union government has said that Elon Musk-backed Starlink will offer services at around 3,000 rupees in a month in India. Chandrasekhar Pemasani, the Minister of State for Telecom, told CNBC TV 18 that Starlink's India entry will not be a risk to existing telecom players. The company's capacity is also to provide only around 20 lakh connections in India. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has said that the company has signed a deal with Samsung to source chips. The deal will be worth $16.5 billion. In a post on X, Musk said Samsung's new fabrication unit in Texas will be dedicated to making Tesla's next-generation AI6 chip. He added that the $16.5 billion numbers is just a bare minimum and the actual output is likely to be much higher. Coming up on India Business Hour, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says no important military asset was damaged during Operation Sindoor as Parliament kicks off a debate. Details in just a bit. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18 news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Jio Hotstar. On to international headlines. Israeli forces have opened fire on Palestinians waiting for food at 2 sites in Gaza. At least 1 person has been killed and several injured. This comes a day after Israel has eased some restrictions in Gaza, allowing 100 truckloads of aid to be collected. However, the UN has warned that the amount is not enough to avert a famine and a massive health crisis. From one war-torn region to another, Russian forces attacked Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, injuring 5 people and damaging a residential building. A Russian drone also hit a Ukrainian bus carrying 39 people in the eastern part of the country, killing 3 people and wounding 19 others. Ukrainian forces also launched a barrage of drones towards Russia. St. Petersburg's airport was closed during the attack, with 57 flights delayed and 22 diverted to other airports. Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in their border conflict. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has said that both sides have reached a common understanding to take steps to return to normalcy. The leaders of Thailand and Cambodia hailed the outcome of the meeting and shook hands at the conclusion of the brief press conference. This comes after 5 days of fighting along the disputed border. Back home, the monsoon session of Parliament resumed today with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh leading a debate on India's Operation Sindoor against Pakistan. The Defence Minister rejected allegations that the operation was halted due to external pressure. He clarified that it was only paused after India achieved its political and military objectives. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar addressed the speculation surrounding Trump's claim that he helped broker a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Jaishankar told the Parliament that there was no call between PM Modi and Trump between the 22nd of April, the day the Pahalgam terror attack, and June 17th, the date the ceasefire was announced.
कभी-कभी हमारे प्रतिपक्ष के लोग ये पूछते रहे हैं कि हमारे कितने बीमार गिरे। मुझे लगता है उनका यह प्रश्न हमारी राष्ट्रीय जनभावनाओं का सही से प्रतिनिधित्व नहीं कर रहा है, मुझे लगता है। उन्होंने एक बार भी हमसे यह नहीं पूछा कि हमारी सेनाओं ने दुश्मन के कितने विमान मार गिराए। आपको प्रश्न पूछना है तो यह प्रश्न पूछिए, क्या ऑपरेशन सिंदूर सफल रहा? तो उसका उत्तर है हाँ।
देश ये भी जानना चाहता है, वे 26 लोग जो जिनके परिवारों में आज कोई गुजर गया, वे ये भी जानना चाहता है कि 100 दिन गुजर गए और वे 5 दहशतगर्दियों को ये सरकार पकड़ नहीं पाई।
There was no call between the Prime Minister and President Trump from the 22nd of April, when President Trump called up to convey his sympathy, and the 17th of June, when he called up Prime Minister in Canada to explain why he could not meet.
All right, let's move on now. We will get you more news from the Parliament in the days to come. Prime Minister Modi will be addressing Parliament House as well tomorrow. Moving on and getting you more national news. At least 3 terrorists have been killed in an ongoing encounter in Srinagar's Dara district. The operation has been codenamed as Operation Mahadev. A joint team of police, army and the CRPF launched search operations in Lidwas this morning. Officials said that there were reports of terrorist movement in the area. The Supreme Court refused to stop the publication of the Election Commission's draft voter list for Bihar on the 1st of August. The Apex Court also nudged the EC once again to accept Aadhaar and voter ID cards to verify voters, as many fears lakhs of voters could be disenfranchised. The court observed that the official documents are presumed to be correct and maintained that any document can be forged. At least 8 people have died and more than 30 people were injured in a stampede at Mansa Devi Temple in Haridwar. The stampede happened on the staircases on the temple road leading to the main temple. The police have said that the incident was caused after rumors spread about possible electrocution. Devi Temple Trust authorities have announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees will be given to the families of the deceased and 50,000 rupees to the injured. 3 people have been killed in a stampede at a temple in Uttar Pradesh's Barabanki. The stampede occurred when devotees began running for safety after a live wire fell on a tin shed on the temple premises. Over 30 were injured in the incident. The incident occurred during the Jal Abhishek ritual at the temple. Maharashtra government culls more than 26 lakh beneficiaries from the monthly stipend scheme for women. This after 17 lakh beneficiaries were removed in April. The state government had credited the Ladki Bahin scheme as a key reason for its return to power. Opposition parties questioned why the illegal beneficiaries were not weeded out before the election. 19-year-old Divya Deshmukh has won the 2025 Women's World Cup in Georgia. Deshmukh beat veteran Grandmaster Kuneru Hampi in the second rapid tie-break with the black pieces. With this, the teenager has etched her name in history as India's 88th Grandmaster and only the 4th Indian woman to achieve the prestigious title. Anupam Puri, the first Indian-American hired by McKinsey and a titan in the world of consulting, has died in New York at the age of 79. Tino, as he was fondly called, was ailing for quite some time and is survived by his wife, renowned dancer and choreographer Rajika Puri. He joined McKinsey in 1917 and set up the firm's India practice in 1992. He also served on the boards of Indian companies including Mahindra & Mahindra, Tech Mahindra and Dr. Reddy's. He was also on the advisory board of Spencer Stuart in India and non-executive director of ICICI Bank and Godrej Consumer Products. Captains of the industry remembered him fondly. Reliance Industries chairman Mukesh Ambani said he brought a rare blend of professionalism and warmth, and he always carried himself with grace, humility and integrity. Mahindra Group chairman Anand Mahindra wrote that his warmth, affection and emotional support will always shine like a beacon in his memory. Adil Zainul Bhai, also a senior partner emeritus at McKinsey & Company, hailed Anupam Puri as undoubtedly the father of consulting in India, who had built a great reputation and a fabulous set of leaders both in India and outside McKinsey as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. News continues right here on CNBC TV 18.